Meanwhile, Pakistan is engulfed in total corruption. We are not the ones saying that. The true nature of Pakistani economy has been exposed by the International Monetary Fund, the IMF. In a blistering assessment, the IMF says corruption in Pakistan is persistent and corrosive, and it exists at every level of the government. According to the global lender, Pakistan recovered 5.3 trillion worth of corruption-linked assets in just 2 years. And even that, the IMF says, is only a fraction of the actual damage that corruption is causing to the country's economy. You heard that right. After delaying it for nearly 3 months, Pakistan's finance ministry has finally released the IMF's governance and corruption diagnostics report. They had to because it was a condition for the IMF board to meet and approve the next 2 loan batches worth $1.2 billion. The 5.3 trillion rupees figure covering recoveries from January 2023 to December 2024. But the IMF is clear here. There is no reliable way to actually measure the full scale of corruption in Pakistan. And the recovery numbers only give a glimpse of the actual cost. Simply put, Pakistan's economy is bleeding, not just from mismanagement or external shocks, but from a corrosive system of corruption that has become so embedded in the country's political and economic fabric. The big picture is far worse here. The IMF says Pakistan is losing up to 6.5% of its GDP every year to this corruption, elite capture, and a justice system that cannot or will not hold the powerful accountable. Assets recovered by Pakistan's apex anti-corruption agency, the IMF says, are just one small indicator of how deep corruption actually runs. The IMF projecting that Pakistan could increase its GDP by 5 to 6.5% in just 5 years if it simply pushed through basic governance reforms. But will Islamabad listen is the immediate question, because history says otherwise. Just to put that into perspective, Pakistan has gone to the IMF 24 times since 1958, making it one of the IMF's most frequent borrowers. Be it Pakistan's military, the military governments or civilian governments, almost every administration has ended up at the IMF's door. And the current program under Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is Pakistan's 25th. Now just consider this. Right after independence, Muhammad Ali Jinnah warned in 1947 that corruption was a poison that must be eradicated. 70 years later, the IMF says that the same poison is still weakening Pakistan, draining public funds, distorting markets, eroding trust, and driving investors away. The IMF's report pulls no punches. It criticizes successive governments and military rulers for enabling elite capture. One example it cites is the PTI government's 2019 decision to allow sugar exports, a policy that benefited powerful lobbies at the expense of the public. The report noting how ordinary Pakistanis have to routinely pay officials just to access basic services. And at the top, policies are shaped by economic and political elites using public authority to enrich themselves. The IMF fielded 2 missions to Pakistan to study corruption and governance, and their findings on the justice system are damning. They warn that judicial independence is compromised, and recent changes to the appointment process for Supreme Court judges raise serious concerns about political influence and the rule of law. The IMF highlights critical risk areas: opaque public procurement, weak budget controls, mismanaged state-owned companies, a compromised judiciary, sluggish, outdated institutions that allow corruption to flourish. The IMF has now laid out a 15-point reform plan. It demands transparency, merit-based appointments, and tighter financial controls. But then Pakistan has already fallen behind. The government failed to publish a required action plan, and key agency appointments were delayed. This is not just a moral argument, of course. The IMF says corruption is a macroeconomic threat. It is discouraging investment, it's undermining public trust, and it's also stopping the country from achieving long-term growth. But then if Pakistan wants to actually escape that cycle of endless bailouts, according to the IMF, it must confront corruption head-on. Not just target a few individuals, but actually rebuild its institutions from the ground up. Only then can Pakistan actually break the pattern that it has been seeing for decades. As the country enters yet another IMF program, the IMF's warning is clear: unless Pakistan confronts the real networks profiting from the misery of the ordinary people, no bailout, no reform package, and no political reset will actually deliver real change. To stay up to speed with the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.